Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Insidious, The Red Door. And this is the latest in the series of horror films starring Patrick Wilson, and originally created by Lee Wannell and James Wan, had directed. And we have the Lambert family at this point. We have Dalton, played by Ty Simpkins, going off to college. And him and his father are pretty estranged. They don't have a great relationship. Rose Byrne had left Patrick Wilson, divorced him, and, things aren't great. But when an art assignment to go deep into your memories causes Dalton to paint a painting of a red door, the further opens up and causes all kinds of mayhem. And this is kind of billed as like the last Insidious film. And I'm really hoping it is, because overall, I do think that it delivers a satisfying conclusion to this family story. And unless you want to pull some BS horror movie crap like you could and make another one, it feels like a pretty final ending to this whole torturous relationship between the Lamberts and the Further. Now, the Further is still creepy and unnerving, and I think the visuals are what really stand out. There's some set pieces with some really great building of tension, and I think Patrick Wilson, who's taken over the directing in this film, I think does a fine job with some scares. Some of them are a little inspired, some of them are straight jump scares, but there's a decent chunk of them that feel really earned and effective, and so it's a bit of a mixed bag from a horror standpoint. I'm a big baby. I was scared, so that worked. I do think that they spend a lot more time on Dalton in this story, and he has a roommate played by Sinclair Daniel, who's Chris, and she's great. She's really interesting. She's fun. She's a fun character. I think she was one of the stronger elements of the film. Dalton's just kind of like this bland, brooding, long-haired, painting artist type, and he doesn't have much to him except getting creepy when dealing with the Further and stuff like that. So I feel bad, because I don't think Simpkins has a whole lot to work with. You don't spend as much time with Josh, Patrick Wilson's character, but Wilson is a strong actor, and he brings some stuff to the table. I do think there's some interesting revelations about their family history and how it connects back to the Further. And I think the themes of grief and loss and generational trauma work in the film. I do think that some elements are convenient. Some parts of the film just weren't that interesting. Like, there's a whole sequence where they go off to like a college party, and I think it highlights some of the writing issues. Like, they're trying to make commentaries of things that don't have to do with, like, this specific family, and it comes off being really blunt and obvious. And that scene just isn't very interesting. And for an hour and 47-minute horror film, I do feel like you probably could have tightened this up. There's conveniences and some not great written moments, but overall, I think this is a bit of a mixed bag of a horror film. I've seen the first Insidious, and that's the only one. I didn't see the second one, but I think they do a good enough job of laying the groundwork. Like, I understand what happened and how it affects this film. Overall, it's scary. It has some interesting imagery. And I think Wilson does a fine job directing. Dalton could have been much more interesting. And especially since you spend so much time with him, he's just not an interesting protagonist. And there's that mixed bag of some things really work, some things really don't work. And in the end, if you're in it for the scares, they deliver. You get some scares, I think that's fine enough. And there's still some depth to this film, and I do think that it's a satisfying conclusion overall to this franchise. And if they choose to leave it lie, I think we're good. But those are my thoughts on Insidious The Red Door. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.